Very good. Well, my name is Rick Spletter, and I live and work in Dallas, Texas. I've been an international trainer for about 8 or 9 years and have the delightful pleasure of being the person who will introduce our presenter for today. Vincentia Schroeter has a resume that is just remarkable. It's a very long resume, and I will give you more details of who she is and what her credentials are. I'm going to make a quick look because I forgot to line this up and get this ready to be seen here. Vincentia has been an international trainer for many years. She was the coordinating trainer in Southern California for many years. And she has been a teacher in Canada, Europe, and the United States. Her book that many of you know about, Bend into Shape, is just a seminal work and something that I refer to on a very regular basis when I am teaching. So for those of you who are not familiar with that book, it is written in several languages. There is a notation at the bottom of, at the end of this webinar that will give details as to how to place that order if you would like to order a copy. She is the co-author with Barbara Thompson, and they have created, again, something in my mind that is one of the most wonderful teaching tools that is available for us in the bioenergetic world. The topic today is the oral structure, and Vincentia is quite expert in that arena and on that particular character structure. And I'm sure all of you are very excited about what she has to present and what she will offer. I have just a few housekeeping items that I want to make sure that you are familiar with. You'll see a world globe at the bottom of your screen, and that is something that you can click on and choose the language that you would like to use during this webinar. So we have interpreters from various languages, so you can simply click there and choose the language that you're most comfortable with. There will be a question and answer session at the end. The Q&A session will be about 20 minutes long after Vincentia goes through her entire presentation. There is a raised hand function at the bottom of your screen, but please understand we will not be responding to the raised hand icon. So anything that you want to say, any questions that you have, please offer that in the question and answer box at the bottom. Not exactly a box, it just says Q&A, and you can click on that icon and offer questions. The chat, we will not be looking at questions there. So please, if you have a question, click on the Q&A icon at the bottom. And I think those are the only housekeeping items that we need to cover. Vincentia, maybe you have an additional thought about something about your bio that maybe I left out. And there may be additional housekeeping things if I'm leaving some of those out that we could get some help with. But I will now turn it over to Vincentia. And I very, very much look forward to what you have to share with us today.
Thank you, Rick, for the introduction. And I want to thank all the people who've been putting together these webinars on bioenergetic character types. In the previous webinar, Louise presented on the schizoid character, whose core wound occurs really early at the age of 0 to 6 months. And that person was an unwanted child who had to face rejection. The next one developmentally is the oral character, whose wound occurs in the whole first year of life, 0 to 12 months. This was a wanted child, but someone who did not get enough love and had to face neglect. Well, I will tell you that I identify as an oral character primarily. Let's see why.
There you go.
Can everyone see this slide? Thank you.
I think you just keep hitting. Yeah.
Okay. I want that one.
Try advancing.
This is me. I don't have the hairband today, but this is me this is me and some of my siblings. I am age 12, and these are the twins who are age, this is not going over there, at the corner here, who are age 13. So I was born 1 year after them. We also had an older brother who is not in this photo. First came my older brother, then the twins, and then me. When I was a baby, my mother had 4 children under the age of 4 to take care of. When my parents married, they wanted 12 children, and that is what they had. After these 2 young boys here, they had 2 more children. My parents loved us, and we were all close, but did we get enough nurturance? One time in bioenergetic therapy, I had this memory. As an infant, I wanted to stay in my mother's arms longer. But as soon as I got sleepy, she tried to put me down so that she could attend to the other children. I would fight sleep and try to entertain her.
No.
Keep going. Somebody else is on.
I would try to entertain her by smiling so that she would stay longer. Excuse me, someone has their mic on. Please turn off your mic.
Mute.
Mute, please mute. I could feel this struggle to hold on to my mother in my own body. My neck was tight, my belly was tight, my jaw was tight, and my little arms were shaky. I was reaching with longing in my eyes. I tried so hard, but I was put down in the crib anyway. I would protest weakly, in a weak way, and then give up. I pulled in, curled up small, and lived in a dream world in order to cut down the loneliness. When we reenacted this in therapy, I could feel in my body the dilemma of a desperate need to hold on and a fear of being disappointed.
I would minimize that. Get out of your way. You don't need to see the people. Get in there. Now the negative. Do the negative thing. Do the little negative thing. Don't just get up here.
I can't hit it with this. I need to get rid of it.
No, don't fuck with that. Just get there. Negative. There you go. There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
So now we're going to talk about the dynamics. The age of the core wound is the first year of life when energy is focused on oral needs around the mouth, such as sucking, licking, or biting. No, a first-year baby puts everything in their mouth. The oral is a wanted child, but one who did not get enough love, attention, nurturance, or warmth. The parents often wanted the child, but were either too busy or too distracted, like with other children, as in my case, or overworking, or addiction, to satisfy the needs of the child. As a result, the baby cries out to be held, changed, diapers, fed, loved. The reaching cry is not answered often enough or for long enough. The reaching cry is not answered. So that cry leads to protest, then giving up in despair. For the oral character type, this giving up is structured in the body. Next, we'll go to the Hilton diagram. And this is, I love this diagram because it has what we usually have in psychology, which was we try to understand what kind of reaching the child had, what kind of reaching did they have that developmentally wounded them? What was the negative environmental response? In other words, what type of no did the environment or the parents provide? And then as a result, in all of psychoanalytic developmental theory, what is the psyche response? In other words, how does that affect my belief system and my way of thinking about being in the world? And the important, essential contribution of bioenergetic analysis and character analysis is that we also respond in our body. How does our body adapt? How do we protect ourselves from the openness of feeling that wound? How do we adjust? How do we compensate in our body? Let's look at how that happens for the oral character. When you had last month with Louise, when she talked about the schizoid, that first developmental need is I have a right to know that I exist. I have a right to be here. For the oral, once you feel like there is a right to be here, the next one is I have a right to need. I have a right to have my needs for love fulfilled. So you're reaching for that. And then the block, again, both in the psyche and the body, the block comes when the parents say no, that there's neglect. The negative environmental response is neglect, not getting enough. And what is the response? The response in the psyche, then the energy that gets blocked here goes up into the head, and we have a distorted belief. And for the oral, that belief is, I can live without reaching and contact the world through giving or waiting. What does that look like in the body? This is where bioenergetic therapists can be led to really help understand the client in front of them. The body adaptation is that collapsed chest. Like I said, the giving up is structured in the body. So you can have a collapsed chest, weak arms and legs. So the arms are weak from not being energized to reach, and legs that don't stand on their own too well. And there's a betrayal of seeing usually sad eyes. An expression of sadness comes through the eyes. Overall, there's an energetic kind of holding on for fear of letting go. So that is the Hilton diagram around the oral character type. This is an image of the oral body, just one of my drawings. So the oral body is usually thin and more like a deflated, like an unfilled balloon quality. Collapsed chest and shoulders, those sad eyes. Overall, an undercharged organism, overall kind of a weaker looking structure. I always tell people when they're learning this that, of course, you come into the world and your body looks similar to your parents or your siblings, and some of that is just your DNA and your what you inherit. But we also carry in our structure what we lived in our first few years and how we need to compensate. And that's what this is. So that's the image of an oral body. And now I wanted to just do a quick demonstration of what that looks like in the body. I'm trying to get my picture back here. Okay, just trying to get the image of myself back that I didn't have. So if you wanted to look at me for a moment, the child reaches for the parent, and then the parental so you're reaching and hoping, and then the parents aren't there enough. They're not there for long enough. You're waiting and hoping. And then that struggle for love meets a disappointment. And so it's too painful to keep reaching with those arms. It hurts too much in the heart. So the arms go back in and we get weak. The chest collapses like that deflated balloon. But check my eyes out. Even when I am, to me, this is like a neutral face. Even when I'm doing neutral, there usually is kind of a feeling of sadness. You can kind of, it looks more sad than other feelings. So you usually can kind of see that in my eyes. So the eyes betray that kind of longing and that sadness. So we kind of reach more. You're reaching with your arms, you're not getting anywhere. You get desperate, you reach more with your head. All this kind of an extra effort, reach with the head. The jaw tightens and I can hold back that oral longing if it's too painful and just kind of reach, live in my head and kind of try to reach or live in kind of my own compensatory, doing things on my own. And then the breath is shallow, the energy's low, but it's tightened into somewhere other than the open-hearted reaching for love. So that's just a quick demonstration of when you reach and you don't get it and what you do in your body. I wanted to now share this image of holding wrists and ask you as an audience to participate. So this exercise is in the book that Rick mentioned, Bend into Shape, if you want to read more about it. But I wanted to invite you to participate with me. And my goal for this is so that you could feel from the inside out what it's like to struggle with this dynamic. So the first thing I want you to do is put, one of your hands up if you're going to participate. Grab one wrist with your other hand. And if you have a watch on or sleeve, move it so that you're skin to skin. This is one hand that grabs. Now, imagine this is the hand that reaches. Imagine the wrist as a person who doesn't want to stay long enough for you. You can close your eyes if that helps you stay with sensation. Just notice what you feel. The hand wants contact, the wrist doesn't want to stay long. Do you want to tighten your grip? Do you want to make it looser? Notice your sensation. And now pull the wrist away. You can open your eyes. Pull that wrist away. If you are the hand, if you can follow this, how does the hand feel? The hand wants to reach, but is ambivalent. This is the dilemma of the oral character. That need to reach meets that fear of disappointment. It's important to appreciate that that's a struggle. Now we're going to go back to the same exercise. Next, imagine that the wrist will be present and stay as long as you need. You can imagine the wrist is someone that you love, that loves you. Imagine that. So again, grab the wrist with the hand. Relax. See if you can, what happens in your body if you relax, breathe. Inhale that feeling of love and connection. Take a breath. Can you take it in? Can you trust it? And just notice what you feel. If you have any questions about this and you want to put them in the chat, Rick will choose some questions later toward the end. But my goal for this was for you to feel what the dilemma is like when you want and you kind of can't trust it's going to be there enough. And the goal is really to trust that there will be enough and to take it in. Because when you don't trust that there's going to be enough love and connection, you actually get desperate and hold on too tight, which squeezes this person. They might want to go away. So you've created a problem, or you're so desperate and afraid they're going to go that you can't relax, breathe, and inhale the love that's there. So you don't get filled up. This is how the oral contributes to their own problem. They don't trust the contact, so they can't relax and fill up. So that becomes the goal of therapy. I just want to check with the translators if the pace I am going is all right. Thank you. The goal in therapy is to work through those blocks. There's a block in my way of thinking in my body, to work through the blocks to reaching, to reclaim the right to feel loved, which, in my head became, no, I'm not lovable. I'm not lovable enough to get filled up enough. So to reclaim that right. And I'd like to talk about some transference and countertransference issues of as many of the people listening to this have been in bioenergetic therapy and or are bioenergetic therapists or just therapists in general. And I always like to talk about what comes into the therapy room. Transference. This client has an ambivalent attachment. So that means they expect neglect. So they want you, they're afraid you won't stay there long enough. So that's going to happen in the therapy room. The oral client can be demanding, and that was like that tightening, holding on to the wrist for desperate fear you're going to go away too soon, or act really disinterested, because when you don't get your needs met, you wander off to the corner and go, play by yourself. So it can act disinterested to hide their need. For example, when I was in bioenergetic therapy in the beginning, there was a point at which my therapist, I always remember him doing this, he turned to me and he said, "What do you need from me?" And it surprised me because I was there every week and doing whatever I thought I was supposed to do. But he was really telling me that I didn't really reveal, I wasn't vulnerable about really reaching out for what kind of help or support I really needed. So I was hiding that need in some way, and I wasn't aware of it. So that's what the client might bring in the room, the oral client. Now, countertransference, this is the reaction of the therapist. You can have an oral client who, remember the oral, the mouth, where we express ourselves in the first year of life. So oral clients can be very talkative. And an over talkative client can bore the therapist. They talk all the time. You can't get a word in edgewise. You feel like they don't even see you. They're just talking and going on and on. Pretty soon you get bored. You want to move away from them, which can, even if they pick it up subtly and it's not said, can make the oral client more desperate. And they might talk more, and they might get more, more talkative. So then you're in a spin. That's problematic. So you could have a demanding client or a very low energy client, and that can annoy the therapist. So bioenergetic therapists, they're there to raise your energy and help you get charged and help you move through blocks. And they want to get you moving, and the oral client wants to give up easily because they can't stay on their own 2 feet for too long. So that can become a problem. And when the therapist then demands that the client stand longer than the client can, it repeats the original wound of the client not being held for long enough, not supported long enough. I think it's really important that bioenergetic therapists particularly understand that point. Look at the client. Yes, you want to help them move through that block and get grounded, but are they getting dissociative? Are they starting to look like they're not there in the room? It's because they can't tolerate in their own structure yet that amount of grounding and standing on their own. So you have to support them. My suggestion, if any of this is happening with your oral client, is to take a breath and remember that these are defenses that the client has put in place to feel safer in the room. The relational stance of the therapist, as with all clients, is to provide a nurturing presence, but remembering that that is what the client didn't get from their parents, enough nurturance. You can use your own body to sense when the client is in the back and forth, is either too clingy or too withdrawn. See the fear beneath it. Be aware that there's always fear. They're looking for that balance and they can't find it. And the client can only stand on their own 2 feet once they are filled up with support from you. So that's a reparative part of the relational stance of a therapist for an oral client. Next, let's talk about some techniques. The beauty of bioenergetics is we have so many somatic techniques and tools that we have or that you can create. But working somatically with the defenses against reaching, it can be very powerful because you're energizing those parts of the body that were blocked. Help them learn to enjoy standing on their own 2 feet. You have to do it kind of with your support and then long enough to where that pleasure hits. Help them enjoy standing on their own 2 feet and to feel the strength of their own back and to be assertive in reaching. These are just some ideas of generally bioenergetic techniques related to the goal of therapy. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, I would like to invite you to try this if you can, if you want to. So if you are at a desk and you have a little bit of space, I'm just going to do it with you. So just we have a short experience of grounding. So I'm standing up, and all I'm going to do is take all my body weight. Let me back this up a bit. I'm going to take all my body. I'm not going to twist or turn. I'm just going to take all my body and put all my weight over one leg. So if you can stand, move over, don't put your shoulder or hip out, but just in a block, move all the way over to one leg, bend that knee, and just you can bend and straighten it if you want. Just lean on that one leg. Take a breath. Feel that one side, all your weight on one side, like an empty pipe filling with lead. I just did it for a few seconds, and I feel like my voice is lower. Then switch when you're ready, switch to the other side. Again, no hip, no shoulder, just move the whole block over. Lean on that one leg, bend your knee. I'm in a small space, but just the idea that you lean and put all the weight down rather than all that energy up here, bring it down to support my own base. And then, kind of come back to the middle, shake that out or let that go. And you could do this sitting or standing, but if you're standing, and we talked about strengthening the back, opening the chest with a bow. So if you want to do that one, you take your hands, you put them in wrists, you put them here, and then you put them in your lower back, like a string is pulling on your chest. Your lower body is like sitting, like you're still bend knees. So the bow is the chest. So you see that opens up the chest. Take a few breaths there. The elbows toward each other. Come back and shake it out. I know when we do this in a group, everybody has their own pace, so you can take another moment to do that. But what it does is opens up that chest, collapsed chest to an open chest. It supports the whole trunk. It's the opposite of that collapse. So, and when you're ready, come back. And then this last one, just to something small that you could do that you could try with your clients is to activate reaching. You want to put energy into those parts of the body that are weak or that are blocked, that don't have energy. So one titrating simple one to activate reaching, which is the issue with oral, is to titrate. You can go back and forth, you can reach like this from the hands, have client reach from the hands only. You can try this if you want, reach from the hands only. You turn the hands to the chest. I reach out for what I want. I go back to myself. Reach out for what I want. With either hope or fear or whatever, I go back to protect myself. It starts there. The next one would be just from the elbows. Reaching from the elbows. Reaching from that. So we did it from the chest only. Come back and then all the way from the elbows. And come back. That's something you can share with your clients. And then you can do the whole arm. So reaching and activating, reaching from the whole arm and trying that over and over. So you could try that on your own, but right now that's just for giving a sense of something you could do to help a client. Is once you activate the place where there's tension, the issues related to the block will come through. As we say in bioenergetics, underneath each block is all the feelings: anger, fear, sadness. So then you're working with the client somatically in a way to help them with their issues. Okay, so this is just to summarize. We had that earlier drawing with the collapse, so it's the same figure, but this shows the treatment by character type. So this is, you want to build that backbone. So that person is assertive and can stand on their own. Fill out that chest, like we just showed with the bow. Pull back these shoulders, strengthen this mid back that's weak. So we're building a backbone, filling out the chest, pulling back shoulders. Build a charge through breathing. The schizoid and the oral are lower energy characters, tend to be. And so you want to build a charge through breathing and helping them, just have more energy generally. They need to reconnect with their aggression. Aggression comes up the back towards the face and forward and out. And orals had to give up their aggression. It didn't do them. Fighting didn't help them get what they wanted. So that didn't work. So reconnect with that aggression to aggressively reach for what they want. And the last point is to use the therapeutic relationship to work through the issues of reaching for nurturance and support. Now, I thought we would do one more exercise. So if you want to participate in this, find a pillow somewhere around you. Hopefully you're in a private room where you can do these things. So you grab a pillow and you hold it away from you. Look at the pillow and see the face of someone you love that loves you. But feel the tension, feel the energy in your arms. See that face. Could be your puppy, could be your family, your child, your lover, your spouse, someone you love. Take a breath. Slowly, with feeling that love, bring that pillow to your chest. Hold the pillow to your chest. Breathe and stay there for a minute. Notice what you feel. this would be a moment if we were in a live kind of workshop, that it would be fun for me to look around at everybody, because this is the place where we kind of fill up. I mean, the whole point in bioenergetics is to help us. Our philosophy is help us feel more alive, help us feel more joy in life. And I wanted to end with this exercise and share with you that bioenergetic analysis did this for me, helped me have much larger capacity to pull in love and hold it and feel filled up by the love that I had to reach for and pull in to me. So I'm feeling good right now. That just feels really nice. The other thing is, when I first learned grounding in bioenergetics, we did that grounding exercise, it was just transformative and very powerful to me to feel so much more centered on this earth and able to move through in an assertive way. So bioenergetics has been very powerful in my life, and I appreciate it. And it's been my goal to help others particularly understand the oral character. So I hope this has helped. This is my last slide. This is me and my siblings in a grid a few years ago at a family party celebrating our parents. This is me here. I'm not going to go over all the names. I kind of want to, but they had to be translated into too many languages. So I won't do that. But we meet, my siblings and I meet every Sunday night on Zoom. It's like the equivalent of the Sunday night dinners we used to have as children. And during that, everyone gets a chance to talk as we support each other through griefs and celebrations. Now, we all have different personalities in the family, but we all have some oral character traits. What that causes is that we may interrupt or talk over each other, just like little puppies, trying to get to the mother. So it's very lively. We make a joke about it, but we have warned new people who come into the family that there's going to be a lot of talking, and we all have to somewhat make space for new people. That's been kind of a challenge to make space, especially for quieter people. So we joke about that, but we try. Well, since we all talk so much, I hope that I have spoken slowly enough here during this presentation, because it's my goal to help you gain a deep understanding of and empathy for the oral character type. Thank you for listening. And I'm just going to share now a resource page. So I used Lowen's seminal, Rick used that word, I like it, seminal work on the oral character type called Depression in the Body. biological basis of faith and reality. It's been translated into many languages. When I read that, I thought, oh my gosh, this is me. I also want to share a link to an upcoming bioenergetic course. It's in English. And this is the link. It's coming up that 3 colleagues and I are presenting a 5-module course on comprehensive, expanding the role of the body in psychotherapy, comprehensive bioenergetic analysis. It's a course. The other resource I used for this presentation was the one that Rick talked about, Bend and Shape Techniques for Bioenergetic Therapists, available through Psychosocial Verlag. So chapter 5 has the oral character structure. That's the pages for English, but it's also available in Spanish as Dando Forma and in Italian. So Dando Forma, Psychosocial Verlag, and in Italian, Il se cerca il corpo. I hope I said that, through Franco Angeli. You can go to my website, and books and how to get them are there. Now I am going to stop share, pause share, stop share. Yes, okay, I'm back. Okay, that is my presentation. And now I think, Rick, if everybody is ready, it is time for your choice on question and answer. I see 7 of them down there in the Q&A, but however you're going to do it.
Well, I want to thank you, Vincentia, for just what I thought was just a masterful presentation. I particularly enjoyed some personal activity involved with that to get that sensation in our bodies and a sense about that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm sure I'm speaking for many, many people when I say that.
Thank you.
Yes, so I will begin by offering a few of the questions that we're getting in the Q&A icon below. And at any point, if one of the technical people needs to jump in with anything, please feel free to do that. But I'm just going to go through a few of these questions. We'll take about 20 minutes or so for this. And I'll begin with a question from Lucia. I hope I'm pronouncing that name all right. As a therapist, instead of a pillow, would you hold your client to your chest, doing exactly the same as with the pillow?
That's a really good question. If you have the therapeutic relationship where you're doing bioenergetic therapy and you can touch your clients, and then you definitely could do something like that. So you could experiment with that, with holding and you're talking about holding your client to your chest. You could do that. And you could also have the client reach out toward you and pull you in. You could do that with a pillow. You could use the body to body, definitely. And of course, here I wanted to use something like that. I'm letting them translate. So hoping they got that. What that does remind me of is that one time a bioenergetic therapist, I was tired. I'd given some workshop and I was kind of exhausted and overwhelmed. And this colleague, during kind of a debriefing thing, she just had me put my head on her lap. She was sitting and she said, "You could stay here as long as you want." That is, as an oral character, that's what I need in order to really drop down and allow that relaxation. I never forgot it. She allowed me to stay there with my head dropped, not up and entertaining her, but dropped as long as I needed to. And that really filled me up. Then I was able to go on. So that reminds me of that question. It's another thing you could do. Go ahead.
So there was a question in Italian, the reference to the book, and I've already offered a response in the Q&A, but maybe you could say again, the book that you referenced, Bend into Shape?
Right. Bend into Shape is available in, if it's in Italian, the Franco Angeli publishing company. I think Patrizia Moselli helped us arrange that. So they translate into Italian, and that book is available through that publisher. So you can just go to Franco Angeli if you're Italian, or there's a link also on my website, which I think is also in the references under books.
So we have a question from Antonio. When you described transference and countertransference, it looked to me as if the oral structure could potentially include two distinct states or traits: the anxious, over-talkative and clingy, and the depressive or detached. These are usually distinct, but I suppose you're saying they both pertain to the oral structure. Is that accurate?
Now, do they have to translate this question before I answer it, right? Let them do that.
Okay.
I think. Oh, you guys are on it.
They're
you
fast.
guys are hard workers. Oh, okay. I really like the thoughtful question, because that's right. You have an anxious and the over-talkative, the clingy, and then the depressive detached, right? And that's part of the fluctuation in the character. Somebody's going to go back and forth between being in their own little world and floating away and coming in, holding on. So if the main structure is holding on, it's holding on too tight for fear of letting go, you're going to try to find the middle between that. So you hold on when you need to, but fill up and then let go. But the question is good about, we lost it there. I saw it. Can I see that question again, Rick?
Yes.
No, I don't see it.
Scrolling down to another question.
Oh, okay. Well, but it went to, those are usually distinct, but really, I think the beauty is when you, it's not that distinct, is it? I mean, we have aspects of different. And the beauty of bioenergetics is if you just follow the client, you may see different aspects of, I mean, all insecure attachments are anxious attachments in some way, right? I mean, there's anxiety around how we grab on.
I'm looking down at my WhatsApp because we're getting some questions translated there. There's a question from Camilla. Is the rationale of the therapy explained to the patient? He knows what the goal of therapy is.
I really like, I like all the questions. They're very thoughtful. I think it's a really tricky thing to, in the old model where it was the therapist as authority, the one person model, we called it, that person would come right in and say, I see what you need and here's what it is. And that I don't think is a good model, because the client, unless they come to it from the inside out, they're not going to grab on to your goal for their therapy. So they may come in with a presenting problem. I feel lonely, whatever it is. I feel lost. I feel sad. I feel something. And then you have to start with where they are and then help them through a sense of their own going into feelings where their pain is, and let them feel that. And when people are expressing their pain and going through it, they'll often come to a place if they're being received well by the therapist, of understanding what their own goal is. So my point is, you don't press over on top, here's your goal, but you do stay in a way to help the person confront where they get stuck.
Very well
That's
said.
my answer to, somebody may say, this is my goal in therapy. I think you need to respect that. But how you find your way through it needs to be the two of you working together at a pace that the client can absorb and integrate, I guess is my point.
We have a question from Simona. Could
Don't
you
they
please say something?
Don't they
Sorry.
need to translate that for a moment?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Give them a moment. Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, we have a question from Simona. Could you please say something about the oral character's sexual life?
Yes. So in terms of sexuality, you could have a variety of different aspects. So sometimes sexuality in the oral is used in service of the the early oral needs. So it would be more like sucking and licking and kind of getting the oral need met. And so a connection. So that's one thing. And then the sexual expression can sometimes be a compensation for not getting kind of a nurturing. So using sexuality as part of a way of holding on to, grabbing onto, clinging onto, using sexuality for that. So there definitely needs to be a balance, as in all characters, between the, we say in bioenergetics, which I love, the head, the heart, and sexuality. So in my own case, I would say I have some rigid aspects. You'll learn about rigid character later. So that sometimes some of the energy in my sexuality was early on an aspect of getting something fulfilled that really was more of an earlier need. So sexuality in service of getting nurturance met. So being held, being just lying in bed with somebody is going to be very intimate often for somebody who carries oral issues. But orality in terms of the sexuality, it's not like a primary wound. You're going to get that more when you get to the Oedipal phase, which is more where the rigid character is. But good question. But like anything else, low energy, you'd want energy everywhere. So you want energy in that person's sexuality, in the working with the pelvis, in the, I always like with sexuality to think of this is for me, it's mine, my sexuality. So I'm in control and have power over it in my expression, just connecting with my heart and head.
Pause for just a few seconds for the interpreters. Another question from Verena. Could you say something about the compensated oral character?
So we talk about the compensated oral. I wanted to give kind of the idea with this talk about kind of the fluctuation back and forth between kind of a collapsed or detached kind of, and then an overcompensated. I go forward, I come back. But the compensated oral moves through the world doing instead of being. Like I'm not going to be loved for just being who I am. So maybe I will get some attention. Like I said, when I was little, I was trying to entertain my mother so she wouldn't put me down too soon. So becoming an entertainer, becoming an educator, doing something where you're doing, that's a compensation. I will be loved for, we say giving or waiting, but if I'm giving a lot to others or doing a lot in the world and I get recognized for that, that's the compensation. That's a compensatory aspect. So an example is like a singer. One time I saw a picture of like Frank Sinatra singing, and all these little adoring women who looked like little birds with their big adoring eyes were staring at him. And so that's like the compensation. Like if you can get the world to adore you, kind of from all that you do, that's compensatory. So people who are compensated orals often have trouble knowing when to stop, when to rest. They don't have a good balance between resting and then filling up enough and then going out and doing things. They're more going out and doing things and then they collapse. Rick, I saw a question about eating disorder. Can I just say something about that?
Jump right in.
Oh, well, let them finish on that one first. So did we get the one about compensation translated? Thank you. It's good to check with you because I can't. I think eating disorders can be related to any character types. I just want to put out too that, character types are an exaggeration of some type of clustering of body tension in one pattern. But we could have mixes, I could, like I just said, I'm primarily an oral. When I read depression in the body, I'm going, oh, that's me. But I also identify with some rigid aspects. So most of us have that, but not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I still think it's really useful to generally help understand a client if you see what their core wound is. And my core wound is around this reaching. So because it has to do with mouth, if I don't feel filled up or I'm tired or I have a lot of work to do and I resent that, I will sometimes go eat. So food can be related to, because we're talking about orality. So I sometimes will use food to kind of nurture myself. And I know I'm doing it for psychological reasons. But I actually think that eating disorders can be any character type. So I've worked a lot with eating disorders and I've seen people primarily come in with other issues. So rigids are kind of people who have to be perfectionistic, anybody who has issues like that. So I do think eating disorders do. I also think all addictions cross all character types. So that's my personal view.
We're ready to move on to the next question.
Sure.
Laura has a question. Is the oral character related in some ways to borderline personality or some other personality disorders?
Well, sometimes it depends on what lens you want to look, but if you look at, if you're looking symptomatically, major depression, so there's a lot of, might be there. Borderline personality, again, that may vary. So to me, this is my little spin. I take the character types, and then I think that people can be organized within the character type at different levels. I think you can be organized at a psychotic level, that you break with reality often, but you generally have, like, say, an oral character. And then I think you can have an oral character and be organized at a borderline level where you're not as, you don't function as well in the world and taking care of yourself and can be really moody. Let's just put it simply. Or you can be organized at a more neurotic level so that you function pretty highly in the world, but where you suffer personally is around this issue. So that is how I see it. So I believe a borderline character type could therefore, if you're following me, could therefore be more schizoid, be more oral, be more masochist, be more psychopathic or rigid. That's my view. But that, again, that was my personal view.
Then I'll offer the next question, and the interpreters at any point can jump in and say, give us a few minutes. That would be fine.
That's
Floriana has a question. Is it possible to propose these exercises to a patient in the initial therapeutic phase who has a closed body without energy, I would say blocked, compared to an excessively fervent, active mind?
I think that you're always approaching, I like that thought, is that you're looking at the body and you're looking at how they think, their own narrative, and they talk, and you're looking at the body. So again, the therapeutic alliance means you join them in a way where they trust you to understand, and you're following them. And if you propose, we talk a lot about bioenergetics. It's like, how do we get them off the chair? You might propose, well, I see you, your breath seems really shallow right now. Would you like to try something? And then they say, okay. And then maybe you just have them put their arms back and take a deeper breath or a longer breath. So start small, but I do agree, you do want to help move energy into the system, because people who work only in talk therapy, they're not working energetically. I mean, you might say something to your client when you're talking to them and then they feel better. Of course, it changes their energy. But if somebody has a really closed system and you're only working in the story, this isn't going to change. And to me, that's the beauty of bioenergetics. So yes, attempt some energy opening technique, simple, with the client, and see how it goes. They close down right away. They're not ready for that. If that opens a little something, a little light, and you can expand it more, go in that direction.
And speaking of change, Roberta has a question. Does the body change after therapy? Can neck advancement be improved?
Neck advancement? Neck?
I wish I could say more about what that might mean.
Neck
Maybe
improvement,
Roberta,
maybe?
I'm assuming that it has to do with reaching with the mouth and the chin, but maybe Roberta can chime in and clarify the question. Maybe Roberta is not with us at this point.
Then Rick, could you repeat the first part of the question for me, please?
Certainly. Does the body change after therapy?
Oh.
And then the question about neck advancement.
I love the question, does the body change after therapy? I'm just going to be honest with you. When I first went to bioenergetics, I thought, and I was so excited. I was like, I signed up for the training program and right out of graduate school, because it was like, this makes sense to me. Let's work with the body. And I thought we were all going to come out the same, looking the same after. I don't know. I just thought, because we're going to get better alignment, like you said, my head's not going to be here. It's going to be here. My shoulders, everything, I'm going to be better aligned. We're all going to come out looking the same. So I thought that our bodies would totally change. But what I learned is that what happens is, yes, I know immediately how to get my body in better alignment, or I recognize more quickly, now I'm in a collapsed posture, or I'm feeling exhausted, or I therapy, what it did for me was it made me know sooner, oh, I'm doing that again, and I better do something in my body to become more aligned, or do something expressive, or so I could shift it. So I'm still an oral character. I'm still wounded around that main issue, but I have more compassion, less shame, and less blame of myself around. I'm more quickly able to say, of course, that's where I'm sensitive, because that's how I grew up. I got a lot of positive things from growing up in a family so lively and all that. But here's what I didn't get. So it's always going to be my Achilles heel. But with bioenergetics, I now know how to ground myself, how to breathe, how to move out of it more quickly, how to take the risk and reach out with less blame. I would say that's what I would say. Our bodies aren't the same, but we move through our issues more quickly when we recognize them. Not all the time, but that's just generally. It's nice. There's all these comments in different languages, Rick, that I'm enjoying.
Yes,
In
indeed.
Italian and in French and in Russian that are, I'm thinking, say thank you.
Yes.
That are appreciative. So that's really nice. I'm really appreciating that we have such a broad range of people interested in this very important work. And I hope it does help people get more of an understanding.
I'm pretty sure that those questions in other languages other than English are being interpreted, and that's what I'm picking up on my phone through the WhatsApp.
Okay, thanks, Rick. I'm so glad you're doing this because it would be too much for me to manage presenting and the questions. I would be too distracted. So
Yeah.
appreciating that your support.
Yes. So Catherine has a question. In a therapeutic context, how you could get balance between limits and giving and not make the client feel, I think she meant to say, abandonment by me. So balance between limits and giving.
Perfect. What I like about that is that you're understanding the relational dynamic is the abandonment fear. That's a big abandon. The abandoned child is the term we use. You don't want to abandon the client, but you want to set limits. So you say, just take something simple like you've got this oral client and their fear of abandonment, and you say, I've got to go on vacation for 2 weeks. And you give them notice and you go on vacation. You worry about their abandonment. But what it is you want to help them be in the real world. Your job is not only to fill them up or to totally repair the parental wound by, you can't fix it. What it is they can then, I couldn't go to my mother and say, let's kick all these other kids off your lap. It's my turn, and then have her go, oh, okay. And then me go on her lap and then everything's fine. So you can't do that as a therapist. But you can work with that. When you come back from that vacation, the client will say, I felt abandoned, or they'll be withdrawn or something. And then you want to say, tell me about it. Not, I'll never abandon you again, or I have a right to go on vacation. No, you want to sit. Your job is to witness and sit with that person in deep compassion about the pain that caused them and help them face reality. That was really painful for you. You lost connection with me. You felt unloved. Tell me more about it. And if you stay with them like that, they'll take it back into their own history and stay with that and realize that that's their own work they have to do. And when you maybe say, so it sounds like your jaw looks tight. Are you angry at me about that? Yes, I am. Twist a towel or say, you left me. you left me too soon, or let them manifest that and work through the issue. I have, well, yeah, I think that's a good answer.
I think that's a very good answer. That's what I was about
Okay.
to say. I think that's very well said. We have a couple of questions about addiction problems.
Okay.
Could you talk about the oral structure and addictions?
Yeah. I mean, we have an association with the mouth. So I'm taking in my first year of life, I'm biting, I'm sucking. I mean, they don't let infants leave the hospital, preemies, until they have a latch on, until they can suck, right? Because you can't live unless you can take in nutrients. So the idea of orality, of filling myself with something that will shift my mood or temporarily make me feel whole or loved or whatever, is a common thing. I personally think it crosses all character types. So I think that with issues with orality, you can use the mouth for in a defensive way like that with addictions. But I also think that all character types can have different types of addictions.
I have a question about protest. This is from
Okay.
Christina. How does the oral character express the protest or the anger of not having been sufficiently seen or cared for? And in case, which exercises can we use?
Good question. So if you've ever heard a baby cry, have a baby, your parent, your grandparent, your now uncle, or like the other day I heard a neighbor baby cry. And first she was crying with a sound of crying like it was almost like just they'll be here soon, they're crying. And then the parents didn't respond, and it made me feel stressed. And I kept thinking, when are they going to respond? And then the child's voice changed to more anger. So it went from to ah. So that's the protest. That's the natural progression. First you reach with hope, and then you go, then you reach, then you're protesting and you're angry. And then when the protest doesn't work, that's really painful. Then you go into despair. Then you give up. And so the oral originally did of course all those, because we all had to cry to get bonded, to be protected, to be safe, or we would die. So that happens. You reach, you protest. And the protest often gets you what you want. If that doesn't work, then you go to despair, because you have to go into a little world of your own where you can kind of be safe and quiet. So, was there a question about what techniques to work with that?
Yes. How to address the anger?
Well, I think manifesting the anger is important, because with the oral, the collapse, the giving up is structured in the system. So that protest often didn't last long. So getting that, loosening the jaw, getting the chin forward, no, or even a demand like, come here, I need you. And often behind that, even when I did it right there, often behind that is fear. If I get angry, it scares me because they're not going to give me what I want. So twisting a towel is a good one, the towel twisting technique, and just looking at the towel and saying, no, no, no. Any kind of protest. And again, behind each block, they might start with anger, and really, so they can really feel I have a right to be seen, to be heard, to be filled up, to be loved. So that's the positive energy that was blocked that needs to come out. And then a layer of that, and sometimes the hurt or sadness or fear underneath that. So yeah, those are ideas for activating anger, activating protest.
Another idea comes to my mind, if you're okay with me sharing, is that the oral really wants to be fed and pulled in. So the more that that has happened in life, doing a pushing exercise later on in the therapy process,
Nice.
because then there's a way of get away from me, which is the total opposite of what the
Right.
oral has been eager to have their whole life.
That's really nice. So you want that boundaries, get away, and you want, get away here and come here. We all need that work. Somebody had a little comment, Rick, about does this happen later in life? And this is important because when we talk about a character type, and this is the first year of life, the first year of life is when you go from I have a right to be here to I need to be loved. That's all we're saying. These issues can come up later, and some people think of orality going all the way to 18 months. So I think the general idea is, what is a need I had around that age that didn't get met or fulfilled? And yes, you can have neglect later in life, and suffer this traumatic response about feeling like those who love leave me, a parent dies, something like that. So yes, these issues can come up later. So
The very next question I was going to move to. So I want to have a question with the technical staff. We are now at 1.5 hours. Do we continue, or what is the time frame that we need to be thinking about?
Rick, we have 30 minutes.
So we have another 30 minutes. All right. Well, we are going to wear Vincentia out. We are going to keep asking questions. And her oral structure she's found adaptive ways to deal with that. So I know she can take it. I know she can handle it. Okay. So I have another question of everyone who's still with us. We've not that many people have left our grouping, so that's nice. But the question has to do with, well, the question was there and then it just escaped me. I will just make sure everybody's aware. There are a lot of comments in the chat, and I made this comment at the beginning of the seminar, but if you have questions that you want to ask of Vincentia, please make sure to put those in the Q&A, not in the chat. The chat is a separate entity, and chances are we're not going to be able to go through all of those chats. So just want to make sure if you have a question that you're eager to have answered, please make sure to put that in the Q&A section or the icon down below.
Oh, I see the Q&A. I was looking myself at the chat. Thank you, Rick. I see Q&A.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to look now at the
Oh, there was
questions.
one I saw from Catherine that I saw earlier. Can I comment on that?
Oh, please jump in.
It said, could you talk about other kind of bodies that we find in orality, and how is this? That's really important because sometimes people have more of I guess I want to use the word flabby, overweight structure, like a baby. They look like a little baby, little roundish baby, still kind of like stuck in that phase. But when you work with them, you hear that core issue. So not everybody is kind of thin, more that kind of more thinner body type. So I have seen more of but still there's usually a lower energy kind of not real defined muscular type, but kind of a flabbier. So you can have people that are overweight, But there's still like an orality. You'll still get that kind of collapse and that longing to be filled up. So that was interesting about different body. Okay.
Some other questions.
Are you looking at some, Bob? There's one from Livio. Did you see that one? Livio Marcheski. How does the right to exist in the schizoid compare to the right to need in the oral? It's a good question.
Yes.
So can I answer that one?
Oh, please. Yes.
So the right to exist was when you are first born, primitively, if we are born, we have to go, do I have a right to be here? So if you meet up with rejection, annihilation, then that threatens I don't have a right to be here. So you have to compensate for that. So that's the first thing you need is to be, welcomed. And then the second need you have is for love and nurturance, food, warmth. So that's a second need. So that's the only reason we put it in that way. But when you listen to a client talk, you can read in their body some of these things. But even if you're not a bioenergetic therapist and you don't read the body very well, when the person talks, the filter through their life, their most pain will be around whatever this characterological issue is, if that's their primary character. So the schizoid will say, I feel like I don't have a right to be here. Life is not worth living. Or I don't trust anybody in this world. Or if it's a more borderline or psychotic level, it's like aliens. I'm an alien. The aliens took me, So with the oral, their suffering is going to cluster around more of feeling loved, getting enough attention, support, nurturance, being lonely because of that. So that's a way. Listen to what your client says and listen to the sound of their voice. You'll feel where the most pain is. And as you go up the character, if you go through the different character types, that will vary. Not that everybody doesn't have some little touches of these. Let's remember that we're only studying this to help you understand a client better, not to put them in a little pigeonhole where you don't see the incredible complexity of all of who they are.
I particularly appreciated that when I was going through training many years ago. You need to experience the whole person. This is just a theoretical framework so that you can put the pieces together so you make a whole puzzle.
Nice. Nicely put.
We have a question from Michaela. Good evening. I'm interested in knowing more about the relationship of such character with pleasure and pain and with dependence and independence.
All right, I see that. Independence, codependence, and independence. Got it. So pleasure and pain. I think that, we often talk about what people what they suffer from and what can make their life more lively or full. That's a bioenergetic goal. But we sometimes don't talk about what they're good at or what they don't need help with. And so the pleasure and pain, my thought on the pleasure and pain is the oral does have the capacity to experience pleasure and pain, but when they go toward pain, their pain is going to often go toward their core issue. So even if it's physical pain, it might go toward the core issue. So I would say that I don't know what more to say about pleasure and pain. I don't think it's a core kind of a deal. But dependence, codependence, and independence is more of a big thing, because wanting to hold on for fear of letting go and not having a sense of when it's time to set a boundary or go away. Oral person usually needs help, struggles with that. Codependent. So I take care of you. And so codependence, meaning I do for you what you should be doing for yourself. I started in the addictions field, so working with addicts, knowing what is codependent, what is not. We learned that right away. So I'm good with boundaries, but codependence is really about doing for somebody what they should be doing for themselves. And how do you know that? As soon as you feel resentful that you're doing something somebody else, you're doing too much. If you feel resentful, then you're being codependent. One of my favorite little books is Codependent No More by Melody Beatty. Old book, but it's a good one. And then independent. So sometimes it's like the compensatory self. Sometimes you can be too independent as an oral. So that's when my therapist said, what do you need from me? I wasn't appearing like I needed anything. So the dance between dependence, codependence, and independence is important to address in the therapy. I feel like I didn't take a pause during that. I apologize to the translators.
If the translators are ready, there's a question: how do you react to someone who's talking all the time about her issues? And I think you've touched on this. For me, it feels like I can never listen to that person enough. It is never enough. So how do you intervene when there's a client who's just dominating and talking all the time?
This is a really excellent question, and I do a lot of supervision, and I get that question. I even got that question this week. So let's use me as an example. I just answered that last question, and I was excited, but I didn't really take a pause. So sometimes when you don't pause, the person, they either can't get it or it's too much. So when you're the therapist, one thing I want you to understand is the over-talking client is either anxious or excited. In my case, I'm like excited to share something, but the client might be anxious and they want you to get them. They want you to understand them. And like me talking, smiling to keep my mother awake, they keep going. They're climbing all over you. So this is really important. First of all, you want to say something like, you want to acknowledge that. Like you could say to your client, excuse me a second. You seem really excited about what you're sharing. Or something that goes to the affect that like, this is really bothering you. You're really worried about this. And then they'll take a pause and go, yeah, I am excited, or yeah, I am really worried. Then you can ask them, this is where bioenergetics is great. You can say, I would like to pause with you for a moment. And let's see if we can breathe into, just take a breath, let's take a breath together. And then let's see where that goes. Now, where is that excitement in your body? Where is that anxiety in your body? So that's the beauty of bioenergetics, is two things. First of all, as a therapist, and you have your body, when you've got this over-talking client, when you breathe together, you're taking a breath, right? That gives you a little more space to go, God, at least she stopped talking. Let me breathe here. Let me take a moment. And then, so it gives you a breather, but it also gives you a moment to find a way to intervene at the level below all the chatting. What's below all the chatting? The need to be seen, the need to be heard, the need to be fed. So that person doesn't really want to drive you away, but they're creating driving you away because they don't know how to pause. They don't know if you're going to stay with them if they're over here not climbing onto you, but they will because they really do want to be seen. So that's my note for an intervention is say, let's pause for a moment and I hear in your voice, you could use that. I hear in your voice the anxiety. I hear you in your voice, the fear. Let's go to that feeling. And then you're in the body. And then that'll really help you with when this issue comes up.
So I have a question from Kirill. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Are there contraindications for psychotherapists to work with an oral structure client? There's a statement that therapists from late structure of character can't work with the oral structure.
So the question was
It sounds
people,
like,
go ahead.
it sounds like the question is, if you, as a therapist, are more of a psychopathic or rigid or other kind of character structure, are there contraindications that you really can't work with an oral structure? And anyway, I'll lay that one on your desk.
I felt sad hearing that, honest to God, Rick, because I like when people admit, like somebody comes to supervision. I had a new supervisee the other day, and the first thing she said was, I feel like you're going to see me as a fraud or an imposter, or I feel stupid. That was it. And I go, good start. Because as a therapist, when you're in supervision or you're asking a question like this, you're saying basically, I'm not sure if I can handle these people. So you got to start with that, because another thing I like about bioenergetics, we're psychoanalytic. We look at transference, we look at countertransference. We're not just apply this technique on this person's body. We're not physical therapists. So when you say, higher level, not higher level, but later developmental structures can't work with it, just that question made me sad, because it's like, oh, they can't do it. I hope what this presentation partly did was help you look at the myriad of what this person brings, what their defenses are, what they need from you, and what your best stance can be. So if you have a block as a rigid character, or narcissist, psychopath, whatever, and you feel like, I cannot handle this, take it to supervision or your group supervision, because those are the folks that will help you. I mean, a good example would be you had a needy parent and you got an oral client who appears needy. Well, that is going to bring up your resistance. So take it to supervision, take it to the place where somebody can help you sit with what your block is to meeting this person. And usually, it has to do with our own core wound, meeting up against this person's.
So there's a question from Angelica. Can you deepen the theme of attachment?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, was there more to that question?
No, I was just going to say that that's no more explanation than that.
Okay. I know that when Louise did hers on the schizoid, for those of you that were, she kind of had a polyvagal theory chart, and she also had a kind of an attachment chart. And I decided to focus more on you getting the picture of this, probably more from the inside out from me, and doing a few experiential things and the therapeutic relationship. But to talk about attachment, which is one of my favorite subjects. So to have a secure attachment, as we all know, we need two things. We need that secure base. You know, the parent gives us enough love and attention that we go, ooh, I feel all filled up. Then I go explore in the world. And then when I get tired or I'm hungry or I've had enough and I want to be nurtured, I come back to that safe haven, right? So that's the circle of security so where we have a secure base to bounce off from and explore, and we come back to that safe haven. Character wounds are, for different of us, are, to me, one way of looking at it is around somewhere a block in there, anywhere in there. So the base wasn't so secure. I couldn't come back to a safe haven. Anyway, there's a way of looking at it. So with the oral character, I think of it as there wasn't really enough, like I said, come back to that safe haven. So I came crawling back at age 2 and I'm tired. And I look at my mother's lap and she's got an infant, a toddler, twins. And so I don't come back. I'm tired, but I don't come back to that safe haven because there's not enough room. So I'm back just kind of being by myself. And I can explore and do all that, especially compensatory, you know, but I don't feel safe. I don't feel confident in coming back and plopping on that lap. Because in my case, not that she didn't want to, but there wasn't enough room often enough. So that's where the ambivalent attachment is going to come in. So the avoidant attachment is, I'm not going there at all. So that's more the schizoid. I'm not going back there at all. Safe. That's a hostile. That's not a mother with 2 kids on her lap. That's a mother who's like, don't trust me. I'm not here for you. So that's more of a rejection. So avoidant attachment. So with the oral, it's more of an ambivalent attachment. I want to come to you. You're there sometimes. So that's what the client's going to do with you. They're going to come sometime to a certain degree and then back off and come. So that needs to be understood in the therapy, that the attachment is ambivalent. I want you, but I'm afraid you won't be there enough. I want to reach out, but I'm afraid I'll be disappointed. That's an ambivalent attachment. So they will bounce around. I hope that explains attachment and the oral character.
Well said.
Thank you.
So Claudia introduces her question by saying, hard question. When the oral is present and strong, but under the rigid character as a kind of defense from the oral one, which one do we work with first?
That's a lot. I like that a lot. I think you work with the first thing that is the most present. So you get what first comes in the room. So what do you work with first? If you follow the body, you're going to find what wants to move first, right? What the person can tolerate in the beginning. So if it's grounding work, I always like to, some foundation is grounding. I don't care what the character is, grounding, whatever your favorite grounding techniques are, because you want that person have a solid enough sense of their feet on the ground, are grounded in the relationship with you. You create the safe environment, and then see what comes up. So if it's a rigid, they're gonna either be really struggling with holding back. You're gonna feel like it's pulling teeth to talk to them, or they're gonna start talking to you about a heart pelvis split. So if they start with their rigid issues, like a heart pelvis split, and somebody will say, you know, I'm married, but I'm having an affair, or I'm in love over here, but I acting out sexually here, whatever, or they want to talk about sexual abuse. So if whatever they present with is what you start with, and then you might, you know, the earlier issues might come up first or second. Start with where they are, but it's a good question, and it I like it.
There's a question from Tanya. What can be the blocked emotion of the oral character?
Sorry about that. So we say that behind every block is it block in the body. There's all feelings, anger that I don't want to express because my protest didn't get me. If I said, hey, I need you more, and that made them go, oh, I'm so sorry, then my anger wouldn't be as blocked and I would be more assertive. So anger is blocked. See, I don't think there's one that's primary. Longing is the scariest one. Okay, so longing and reaching is the longing. Oh, because I'm kind of work with longing, with the arms, with the voice. That's going to be the scariest one usually. I know when I did my work around getting my arms and being more assertive in early bioenergetics, I was kicking doors down with my foot and opening them, and it felt good. Getting my assertiveness felt really good. I felt a lot more vulnerable on the reaching assertively fine, but reaching, in a longing way. So that's that's the hardest one. But again, you're going to work with fear because everybody has a fear of whatever they're not going to get. And so all the emotions with all the characters, but definitely longing doesn't feel safe, and assertiveness doesn't get you what you need. I do have one little story I'd like to share. This is kind of a reparative thing that sometimes we make too much of a cartoon of character types and of parents. And my youngest sister, there's that photo where I have of me at age 12 in the beginning where I'm holding my arms around one of my little sisters. Well, that little sister shared the story one time that she was 2 years old and my mom was sitting holding the new baby. So my sister was here and my mom was holding the new baby, and my sister wanted to go to my mom. And my mom was, breastfeeding the new baby and saw my sister, like, I think outside the window, she said. And my mom turned to my sister and went like this. And what my sister got from that was my mother's face said to her, I know you still want to be here, and you probably need more time on my lap. So I'm sorry that I can't provide that for you. That, and my sister was 2 and remembers that, because that fulfilled, instead of I am not lovable, it meant she really does love me, but she can't quite make it happen enough. And I think that's a beautiful story. It's kind of like you can't change the reality, but if somebody feels into what your pain is about, it really can make you feel, it could be very healing.
Well, I'm noticing that we only have about 3 minutes remaining to stay within the time frame that we have committed. And my apologies that we did not get to all of the questions. And I hope that those questions that were written in a language other than English were all interpreted. And I offered many from my phone on the WhatsApp. But I'm wondering if it might be most appropriate for you, Vincentia, to just bring us to closure. There may be some particular items that you want to emphasize. You may want to add some things that have not been added. I'll add one piece, and that is Vincentia was the editor for the International Bioenergetic Journal for a number of years. And I forgot to mention that in the introduction. But maybe there's some things that you would like to close with, just to put a nice bow and ribbon on your presentation.
Let me take a breath. I feel this really, really good feeling of being present with you all. But when you told me to do that, I did. I was tight here. My head was forward. I brought my head back, Rick. I took a breath here. I relaxed my belly, put my feet down. So I feel very fulfilled. And my goal was to help people understand better. And I know we don't get to all the questions. That's all right. But I hope that this was useful for you, and that you enjoy the rest of the presentations on character. And I would just want to thank you, Rick, and the whole team for doing this work. I think it's very valuable to get into a rich level of sharing about character types for folks. So thank you so much for being here. Grazie, gracias, merci.
And just a quick notation that this is being recorded. There were a few questions about, can I get a copy of the recording? I'm not sure where you will find that. Maybe it's on the IIBA website. I don't know. But it is being recorded, so it is available for those friends and colleagues who were not able to attend with us, or for you to be able to review it and watch it another time.
Okay.
Well, again, I feel honored that I was able to be a part of this with Vincentia, and just my best wishes.
Obrigado, obrigada. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.